Resilience is about the ability to overcome adversity. It's the capacity to bounce back. It is a mindset. It's about how you think. To understand resilience, what you have to understand is that we are all animals, and we all come from the jungle. And what is the most dangerous thing that can happen to us in the jungle? You get eaten by a tiger. And you only have one set of hormones. And your hormones are, there's a tiger chasing my ass hormones. That's all you have. It's adrenaline. And those hormones act up very ferociously and prepare your entire body to escape from danger. And when you are escaping from danger, when adrenaline is going through your body, can you think clearly? No, because you're not supposed to turn the tiger and say, is there any way we can work this out? Right? You're supposed to be running. So the mindset of resilience begins with understanding what is a real tiger versus what is a paper tiger. With the bottom line being, if it can't chew your face off, it's not the real deal. If you have kids who think the AP bio test is going to determine their entire life, then literally the blood is going to be in the wrong part of their brain. It's going to be in their amygdala, which you'll understand in about 20 minutes. All right, it's going to be, instead of their cerebral cortex, which is where they can think. So the mindset of resilience, is this a real tiger or a paper tiger? Next, resilience is not invulnerability. I could move into these kids' houses. I've raised my own kids, and I didn't raise kids who are invulnerable. Resilience has its limits. Next, we wouldn't want it to be invulnerability. Because remember that we talked about success, and we said that one of the key elements of success is to have kids who are going to grow to be compassionate and kind and empathetic, right? What is it that makes you that? That's not genetic. That's about your life experience. So I don't know you, but particularly for those of you who work with adolescents, this is not a random placement. You don't like wake up and go, I know, I'm going to work with a group of people that everyone else thinks are jerks. All right? Usually it's that you've earned the right to be there. My story is this. I'm 53. I've had the best life of anybody I know. My ACE score is 0. You'll understand what that means in a little while. All right? Happiest life I know, except for 17, where for about 7 to 9 months I wanted to kill myself. And everything I looked at, I looked through the lens of how could I die and make this look like an accident. So I never tried, okay? I just planned it all the time. And a worst time in my life, and it was 1979. Who did I go to for help? Who do you think? Not teachers, not friends, nobody. I went to nobody because it was 1979, and being a man who had the depth and the breadth and the intensity of feelings that I had just wasn't cool. And I also come from a culture that uses humor to mask pain, so like I have that down, right? So I lie to a whole bunch of people. So what is my life now? My life now is lifting up teenagers and working to create policies and programs that reduce shame and stigma in the help-seeking process. Thank God for 17, right? So what you have to look at, and this is one of the key messages that I gave to parents last night, about 200 parents last night, and I'll tell you, this is what brings tears to their eyes. If you have a kid who's anxious or depressed, I'm not saying that it's good or comfortable, but I'm saying that it's a blessing on some level, because you have a kid who cares deeply, who feels deeply. Did you really want the kids who don't care, who don't feel? So what we have to do not is condemn kids for these emotions. What we have to do instead is teach them how to leverage them and how to use them, which is what we're talking about today. Resilience is not a temperament trait. It's not something you're born with. It is something that is affected by the supports and circumstances in people's lives. I can tell you the bottom line of resilience while standing on one foot. 60 years of research. The kids who make it are the kids who have had at least one adult, more is better, who believe in them unconditionally and hold them to high expectations. Who's that adult supposed to be? It's supposed to be your parent. But make no mistake about it. When it is them, you're only additive. And when it's not them, you are the most pivotal and critical people in their lives, hands down, period. All right? And what does unconditional belief mean? Is that like, Johnny, it's okay to do drugs? Is that what unconditional belief means? No. Unconditional belief means I'm not going anywhere. You're not a bumper sticker in my car. You're not a point on a test state testing. That's not who you are to me. And what does that I am there because I believe in you as a human being? And what is high expectations? Is that about grades? Is it about trophies? Is it about scores? No. What every human being needs is to be seen, to be known, to be valued. Ideally, parents know who their kids really are. Let me tell you who my kids are. So I have two 20-year-olds. They're amazing kids. But who they are is the girls who wouldn't let us stop, or who wouldn't let us turn off the lights in the summertime. Why? Because there were moths hanging around the light bulbs. And so we would have to turn on the outside lights, turn off the inside lights, and walk the moths out with flashlights to be with their moth grandmas. That is how delicious my girls are. And the fact that I know who they are means that during the worst of times, they come back to me. That being known is the most protective force in human existence. You'll hear this theme throughout. That's it, because we know that kids live up to or down to your expectations of them. Don't you know that as teachers? And don't you know that as mommies and daddies? That's it. The rest is commentary. That's what resilience is. That's the essence of today. But we've got like another 6 hours, so let's keep going. All right? So since kids live up or down to our expectations, it means our attitude really matters about them. So, one of the mothers of the youth development movement, Karen Pittman, says problem-free is not fully prepared. Right? Too often, especially with poor kids. So I am aware that this district is having a massive change in demographic. All right? I'm aware of that. So this is what you have to protect yourself against. Do not for a minute believe that it's good enough to take poor, oppressed, and marginalized kids and prevent them from doing drugs. That's your end goal. Do not believe it's good enough to change sexual behaviors. It's not good enough for my kids. It's not good enough for any kids. We have to decide that our goal is absolutely to prepare all kids to lead us into the future, to be those successful 35-year-olds. Kids know what we expect from them. They judge our attitude very easily. How is it that we see kids in general? Are kids at risk? As soon as you talk about kids, is this the first thing that comes to your mind? Is youth at risk? This is Rudyard, Montana, 596 people, one old sorehead. Anderson Cooper comes into town. What's the story? When he comes into town, what's the story? Ma'am, did you see the sorehead? Do you feel in danger? That's the story. And this is the way we treat kids. Whenever anything bad happens about kids, it becomes what people expect of all kids. This is a disaster. We who know and love kids are the antidote. All right? Are kids problems or are they problem solvers? Here, this is the 7 C's model of resilience. This is the American Academy Pediatric model. This is my model. It is stolen from the youth development people and synthesized. The first thing that we need for kids to be resilient is confidence. And we knew exactly how to do this, guys. We've known for since the 80s, exactly how to build confidence in kids. It was all about their self-esteem. And here's what we did. So the kindergarten teachers knew that on the first day of kindergarten, the first lesson was everybody draws a butterfly, right? And the kids draw out the butterflies, and then the teachers were trained to make everybody feel really good about their butterfly. Look at your yellow. It's so bright. And look at those eyes. They're so big. And look at your stripes. Those are great. And then the butterflies would go up on the wall, and the lesson for the day was what? Kids, you're all as beautiful as butterflies. The next day, you would cut out snowflakes, and the snowflakes would all be different. And the lesson for the day was what? You're all unique. Coaches were told not to criticize anymore because that made kids uncomfortable. And instead, they should praise all the time. Everybody should get a trophy just for showing up, and sometimes maybe you shouldn't even keep score. Parents were taught to praise every single move that their child makes. So here comes Billy down the sliding board. Look at you, Billy. Look at you. You're ready to do it. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're coming down. Good for you, Billy. You never gave credit to gravity. Billy, good for you. And what happens to Billy and Susie when they grow up? What happens? Highest rates of anxiety and depression we've ever seen. I want you to be careful of statements like that. Whenever you hear any statements like that, the sky is not falling. Yes, we do have higher rates of anxiety and depression we've ever seen, but I want to remind you that in 1979, I was not a statistic because there was too much shame and stigma for me to become a statistic. So there's actually something on the flip side good about these rates. Okay, it means people are coming. With that said, highest rates of anxiety and depression we've ever seen. Kids who are, as some describe them, a bit self-centered and narcissistic. Why? Billy, it's all about you. All right? And kids who call their mothers in their 20s. We're talking now about the socially elite kids, mostly the middle class and above kids. But they go for their first job, and especially the kids who've gone to the highest level schools. They've never gotten a B+ in their life. They're absolutely terrified. They don't believe they deserve criticism. Their boss gives them criticism. They call their mothers. For real. Okay, so this is what we have. So we know that this is one of many factors that backfired on this generation. And real confidence is about earned confidence from competence. It is from having done things, people noticing what you're doing well and building their skills. Next, connection. The bottom line is that the kids who make it are the kids who are going to be connected with other human beings. Next, character, having an understanding of what is right and wrong, having that tenacity, having that grit. Next, contribution. This is the tikkun olam piece, having a commitment to repairing the world, where everybody knows that they are mattering to somebody, has a sense of purpose. Let me tell you why this matters so much. Why do you want your kids volunteering so much? You want them volunteering because you want them to understand that service feels good. Because the ultimate act of resilience during the worst of times, the guy who's going to make it is the guy who has the bravery to turn to another human being and to say, sister, I need a hand. That's the person who survives. The question is, what allows you to reach? And what allows you to reach is knowing there's no pity in the room. How do you learn that there's no pity in the room? You learn there's no pity in the room by having had the experience of service, and you know how good it feels to serve. But it's more than that. Remember I talked about all kids being held to low expectations? All kids are seen as thoughtless and troublemakers and selfish and weak. If you're talking about minority kids, in America, minority kids are also seen as dangerous. They learn that people cross the street when they see them. This is poison to healthy development. Poison. So for all kids, what we need to do is have them out there contributing so that they are surrounded by thank yous rather than condemnation. When kids receive gratitude, they rise. And for those kids, and most kids, but especially for those kids who are going to be held to low expectation because of racism, homophobia, and other factors, it is doubly important that we help them to be immunized by people knowing who they really are. Next, coping. We've talked about it already 3 times. Bottom line, everything you fear is about kids trying to feel better, and we've got to stop telling kids what not to do and begin helping them understand what to do. And finally, control. We've also talked about it. The bottom line of control is that you either believe that the world happens to you or you believe you control your universe. Where do you learn this from? You learn this from discipline, right? And what does discipline mean? Do you know? It means to teach. I heard a couple people mouthing it. It means to teach. It does not mean to punish. It does not mean to control. And it absolutely does not mean to harm. So when you raise a kid, or perhaps even in a classroom, but the literature is in parenting, when you raise a kid in this way, you'll do what I say. Why? Because I said so. You feel small. when you raise a kid to understand that my goal is for you to reach independence, and all that I need you to do is to demonstrate responsibility, and I'm going to give you more and more privileges, then kids feel large. But it's more than that. I want to add something to the definition of success. I have two 20-year-olds now, and I will define my parenting as successful when they choose to live in my neighborhood, when they grow up. I mean it. In America, not my basement, my neighborhood, okay? America has a very distorted view of rugged independence. It is a social experiment that is bound to fail. In the history of humanity, it's always been about tribes and families and intergenerational respect and caring. Now in America, we celebrate when our kids are massively independent. I actually think that our goal has to be interdependence and comfort with interdependence. Where are you going to create this in America? The way you're going to create this is by honoring independence along the way. You can't say to your 17-year-old, I know you're acting like you hate me right now, but I really want you to live down the block. It's not going to work. What is going to work is to honor their independence now so that they will choose to be interdependent later. It's about not installing control buttons. When you don't install control buttons during adolescence, your kids will come back to you later. So again, kids judge our attitude really easily. But it's more than the words that we say that are helping kids connect with us. So the first thing we have to do if we're going to work with adolescents especially, but all kids, is to find your buttons. Because some kids, especially those kids who are the toughest kids, know exactly how to find your buttons, right? So in the perfect world, this would be like a several-week training. I would sit down with each of you and try to figure out why you're so messed up, right? But in the less than perfect world, we're going to use me repeatedly as examples. So I grew up in Haverford Township, and I reached puberty really, really late, like early 15. And I was the cutest guy ever. In the sense I was probably the most popular kid in the school in the same way that a puppy loose in the hallways would have been. And all the girls called me Little Doll. And in fact, the most popular kids in school owned a piece of me. They made one of those roll map papers. You remember those brown rolls of paper? And they made a map. It was called the Partition of Little Doll Territory. It was my naked body with serrated lines. And different girls owned different pieces of it. And I would walk down the hall, and they would grab that piece of me that they owned. It was so cool. And I'll tell you another story. In 10th grade, my best friend was this guy who lived down the street from me, and there were really no other people in the neighborhood because of just where I lived. So we shot hockey every day, more or less. And when he was 16, he got a car, which for what it's worth is 13 years before I did. And then all of a sudden, I begin hanging out with him. This kid's classic, American, beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. He's a soccer star. And suddenly, I'm hanging out with all the other soccer stars in school. And one day in homeroom, he comes up to, no, his other best friend came up to me and said, like, ooh. And I was like, what's going on? And then he mentioned this girl's name who was a friend of mine who was not only unattractive, but was a little bit misshapen, you know, a little bit genetically syndromic. And and he was like, ooh, and I was like, what's wrong? And he's like, this girl, she talked to me. And I was like, yeah, so? And he said, and everybody saw. So remember when you're an adolescent, like flexibility is not your greatest virtue, you know? And I didn't go like, oh, what happened to him? So instead, I was like, I hate him. And I told this other friend of mine, you have a choice. You can be friends with him or with me. And who did he choose? Him, which worked out really well because I didn't become an alcoholic, so it's all good. But what does it mean? It means that I am stuck in my adolescence, as we all are. All right? So a beautiful girl comes into me in my office, and she's 15 years old. And keep in mind, I see kids naked for a living, right? So she comes into my office, and she's 15 years old. What do I need from her? Because I'm stuck in my adolescence, as we all are. What do I need from her? What kind of validation? Do I need her to think I'm cute? No, I own cute. I have that down. What do I need? What did I not get when I was 15? What did nobody think I was? Sexy. So on some level, I need this 15-year-old girl to find me sexy. Do you understand how dangerous this is if I don't bring it to consciousness? All right? And how much burnout potential there is for me when I see kids repeatedly who push my buttons. What about the great-looking, cool, athletic boy who comes into me and he's like, Dr. Ken, you know, I slammed back a few beers on Friday night and I blacked out. What does the 15-year-old or 16-year-old want? I want him to be my friend. So I'm going to be like, really? Well, dude, how many beers do you think you could have handled, huh? Right? But that's not a cool adult. A cool adult is someone who has good values, well-boundaried, and is able to share them without judgment. So if I am not aware of what pushes my buttons, which were installed during adolescence, then you just can't do this job.